That's okay. I know, I know. That lip is just so small. Well, thank you. And Hayden, thank you again for the choice of music that so beautifully upholds the passage that we're going to look at today and where we are in our quiet celebration of things. Yeah. Um, those of you who were not here last week, and I still have a hard time knowing who you are behind your mask, if it's the same faces or different faces. Um, we did the covenant of the rainbow, the Genesis following the flood, and the promise to be with us. And so I had my grandchildren cut little rainbows, pretty pastel. We picked out a really pretty little pastel color that would sparkle if the sunshine got on it. And I forgot them. I left them on my table last week. So Marley's already texted me this morning to remind me, make sure I brought the rainbows today to give you. So whether you were here last week or not, I invite you to remember rainbows as a sign of covenant of God's love. We're continuing this series of stories of God's love, and this is a gospel reading this time. And it's a story of three people in the parable and the story that are there. It's from the Gospel of Luke. And it's a story that everybody knows, kind of like the covenant story. Everybody knows, but it's good to visit it again and to see it afresh and anew, to hear something new in it for each of us in some way. So I was looking for something that spoke to us about God's compassion and love, and it just came to, well, you know the chapter. It's Luke 15, and the scribes and Pharisees have been following Jesus, have been fussing that Jesus is eating with tax collectors and sinners and all those sorts of things. And so those church leaders were a little upset about all that. And so in these several chapters there, Jesus is telling them stories to respond to them. I'm going to invite us to hear this story, this one story. First, there was a story about, I can see it, sheep. And out of all the sheep, one was lost, was found. And then there was a second parable about a woman that had 10 coins, and she knew where most of them were, but one was lost. So sometimes the heading on this third parable is called the parable of the prodigal son. I'd like for you to hear it a different way. I'd like for you to be open to the characters in the story and to what might be a deeper healing. I wrote down some of the words of the songs we just sang, of our love, our hope, some beautiful words that are there, the one who God is to us. So hear this. Let me find my large print version of it up here. So after telling those two parables, Jesus continues. And this is the parable that he tells. There was a man who had two sons. The younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." So he divided the property between them. Not longer after that, the younger son got together all that he had, and he set off for a distant country, and then squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. I'm pausing. That does not sound unlike someone in our own family, young, wanting the things that were his, going out to experience the world, making some mistakes along the way, forgetting what it was like to be home. When he came to his senses, Jesus said, He said, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am, starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. And I imagine he practiced that speech several times. And then he got up and he went back to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger, sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For the son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate. The story often stops there, and that's enough for celebration. The story of the son who went away and squandered things and realized what he had done and practiced saying what he was going to say, asking for forgiveness when he returned home. And it was enough to celebrate, a feast with the best. But that's not the end of the story. There is another character. You know this part of the story too. Hear it with new ears. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. Your brother has come, he replied, and your father's killed the fatted calf because he has him back safe and sound. The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, Look, all these years I've been slaving for you. I've never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so that I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fatted calf for him. My son, the father said, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. It goes on to say, we have to celebrate and rejoice because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found. We have to celebrate. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Yeah, the rest of the story. Remember there used to be a newscast like that? Paul Harvey would turn the page to hear the rest of the story. It could end with the celebration. But as I was thinking of this story and remembering it, remember I had my grandchildren with me last week? 3 siblings, a 15-year-old, an 11-year-old, an 8, soon to be 9 this week, year old. You can imagine the dynamics that were going on at my house. And I'm hearing them tease each other, squabble each other. Who got this? Who got the last piece of this? Oh no, who can't have that? And I thought, you know what? This scene sounds familiar to me. Arguing about who's the oldest, who's the youngest, who deserves what do we need to do, where do we need to go, what do we need to... This sounds familiar to me. And a loving parent who loved all. Sometimes growing up, our kids would say, who do you love the most? And we would say, we love you all. We love you all. And following that is the phrase, no matter what, we love you. You're our created ones, our beloved. I also, this week, was dealing with some difficult things. Conversation about the divisiveness in the churches, in the church, and not knowing which road to take or where to go and what to do and who's going this way and who's going that way. And I thought, this loving parent loves us all. The same way in the creation, in the covenant story last week, we were reminded God's love is for the whole earth, all creation, all beings. That's the measure by which the people of that time were to respond and act to a story of love. And to the people of the generations between have been called to respond in love. And to our world today, to respond with a compassionate, loving, caring, all those words that we sang about that I wrote down and I can't read them. Find them here somewhere. You are our love, our light in the darkness, hope, our restorer. Every heart that's broken, you restore. All the earth, breathe. That's why I think it's important to hear the second part of the story. Not just of the son who went away, the younger son, like younger children do, and make wrong choices sometimes, and get off track, and need help getting back on track. But also those of us who think we know it all, because we know the stories, we've heard them forever. We know those stories by heart. We too have something to learn about the rest of the story, and how we are called, even when it's hard, to be the loving, compassionate, caring part of God's family of love. So, this day, when Regina, you know this before, that Regina and I taught long ago in the public schools, taught elementary music together. And one of the songs that I used at First Methodist and infused always everywhere was by a music person, really, really lovely, Mary Lou Walker. And with simple guitar, she would write simple songs for the children to use. And one of them was called If I Run Away Today. And I will admit, one of my sons and I sang it one Sunday. We've done it several times before, but in those years, he sang the first verse, if I ran away today, if I made you cry, if I traveled far and wide, and never told you why, if I found the times were hard and I was all alone, could I still come home to you? Could I still come home? And the parent's voice sang back, if you ran away today, if you made me cry, I'd hope that you'd come home again. No matter the reason why, I'd be so glad to see you, even though you've been gone so long away from home. That's a song that I've used with this story many times, but there's another song. It's one that I wrote back in the 80s too, to this text. And I've got the words, if anybody wants one afterward, to have a version of it. This is from that book of Rainbows and Other Signs of the Story. And we'll finish with this, if I can see it over there. The text that I've set to music. Out in the field, a son in bondage to duty, always there working, but never knowing why. What's going on? It's a matter of confusion when they're singing and dancing, and he's not a part of it. The prize calf for him. How can you be so unfair? Look what I've done for you. And what have you given me? How can it be? The party should be for me. Son, my son, all I have is yours. Son, my son, your brother has come home from the death of waste and ruin, we welcome him back to life. We have to celebrate. Now we are together again. Will you come and celebrate? Your brother has come home. We have to celebrate. Come and celebrate. Come and celebrate. Son, my son. Again, probably without the voice, but with the sounds of the text. Out in the field, a son in bondage to duty, always there working, but never knowing why. What's going on is a question of confusion. Now there is singing and dancing, and he's not a part of it. Your brother is home, words that stir angry hurt, a heart full of jealousy, the prize calf for him. How can you be so unfair? Look what I've done for you, and what have you given me? Prize calf for him. What? How can it be? Son, my son, all I have is yours. Son, my son, your brother has come home from the death of waste and ruin. We welcome him back to life. We have to celebrate. Now we are together again. Will you come and celebrate? Your brother has come home. We have to celebrate. Will you come and celebrate? Will you come and celebrate? Son, my son. The rest of the story speaks to us also. May you be blessed this week with love and forgiveness when you don't get it right. May you be blessed with unconditional love when you need it and your heart needs to be mended to love others. Let us go forth from this place with thanksgiving. Amen.